Directly in front of me is the Cafe San Marco in Trieste, where James Joyce, Italo Svevo, and lots of other writers and philosophers and intellectuals used to meet up after the cafe opened in 1914. It's actually a really nice cafe. If we go in here, it's a good place to sit and work with a laptop. I've spent many hours sitting in here, and it's quite beautiful. I've tried to read James Joyce, but so far I haven't managed to get into his writings, I'll be honest. I started reading some of Italo Svevo yesterday, and that seems a lot more like my kind of thing actually, so I might get through that. James Joyce was actually Italo Svevo's English teacher. Joyce lived in Trieste from I think 1905 to about 1920, on and off anyway, working as a English teacher here. And Italo Svevo went to him for English lessons. Now this is Cesare Battisti Street. I looked up Cesare Battisti about a year ago, and it said Cesare Battisti was basically a communist terrorist who killed some policemen. And I was thinking, why would you name a street after a communist terrorist? I guess Italy is just different like that. But apparently there are two Cesare Battistis, and the one that the street was named after, that's a different guy altogether. He was an Italian politician, Cesare Battisti, and he wanted Italy to be basically all one country. He didn't want the Trentino area to be separate to the rest, for example. So he was an Italian patriot. We're going to cross the road here. That place directly in front of me, that place, that's a really nice ice cream shop. I highly recommend it. It's always busy, even when it's open in winter. So yeah, there was this thing called the identist movement, and basically like Italians who live, for example, in the Trentino region in northern Italy, they wanted that region to be part of Italy, not part of Austria, because at the time it was kind of part of Austria under the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And the Cafe San Marco, when it first started out, would actually create fake passports so that Italians who were living in Austria could actually move to Italy, because particularly when the war broke out, First World War, like the Italians in Austria didn't want to fight on the side of the Austro-Hungarians. They wanted to fight often on the Italian side, and that was the deal with Cesare Battisti. He was actually killed in the end by the Austrians. He was executed for treason because he fought on the Italian side and not the Austrian side. He was actually from Trento in the Trentino region, Trentino Alto Adige region. So let's go down this little narrow street here, and the street that we're coming to now is it's called 20th of September Street, and just down here actually is the house where Italo Svevo was born, somewhere past this pizzeria. Okay, yeah, it's this one. I think it's this one. Is there a plaque outside? Let's turn and look at it. Here we go. So that's where Italo Svevo was born, apparently. But yeah, on the 20th of September 1870, Italy actually invaded Rome, which was one of the last vestiges, or the last vestige, I don't know, of the Papal States, which were regions controlled by the various popes. You know, one after the other, I mean. And so 1870, 20th of September, was kind of an important date in the formation of Italy, because then Rome became Italian at that point. So this street is named after that. And there are a lot of really nice cafes down here. And the system in Italy generally seems to be you just go and plonk yourself down in a cafe. I'm talking about cafes here, not restaurants. And someone will come and ask you what you want, and you can say, I want a cappuccino or whatever. Trieste has its own naming scheme for coffees, but I don't really understand it. So I just say cappuccino, and they bring me a cappuccino. In fact, down here is where I often like to go for breakfast. So this place right on the right here. Okay, we went past it. But yeah, right at the end here on the right, that's where I like to go in the morning and have a croissant sometimes. They run out of the empty croissants. Vuoto, I think you say. It's a two-headed fountain. It's James there. Janus, I'm not sure. Yeah, before about 9:30 you can still get an empty croissant with nothing in it. They're really fresh and tasty. Italo Svevo apparently wrote a couple of books, I think when he was in his 20s, and they weren't well received at all. And there was a 25-year period when he didn't write anything. Among other things, he worked for his father-in-law, I believe. He also worked for a bank for 18 or 20 years, depending on which source you look at. And apparently he hated every minute of it, which I can definitely relate to. So yeah, I'm gonna try. Maybe I'll try again to get into James Joyce. Maybe I should try one of his easier books. He's definitely written some books that were least comprehensible, so I might give those a go. Italo Svevo, I read a few chapters of his book The Conscience of Zeno so far, and he's talking about, it's kind of humorous, he's talking about his efforts to give up smoking, and he actually, according to this book, I don't know if it's true or not, but he paid someone to lock him in a room, some kind of doctor with nurses, so that he couldn't smoke, but he somehow persuaded the nurse to bring him cigarettes, and then he tricked his way out of there and just went home, didn't even spend a night there. So anyone who's been addicted to cigarettes can definitely relate to that. This building at the end there is the Church of Saint Antonio. It is the biggest Catholic church in Trieste, apparently. I had trouble believing that when I read it, because in my mind this is always like quite a small building, but it's actually not small at all if you look at it. So we're going to go down by the side of this here, and you're going to see the sea. Maybe you can already see it, I don't know. I'm watching this video in a kind of small playback mode thing while I'm recording this, so I don't know if I can see the sea there. You might be able to if you're watching it on full screen. But behind this church is actually a thing called the Grand Canal, Canal Grande, and the canal used to come all the way to the church from the sea, which is literally just over there. Why have a canal like randomly in the town like that? But of course it was so that people could transport stuff to the sea. Trieste has been a really important dock for a really long time. When it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was basically the port city of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it's still an important city for transporting goods across the sea. So we've got some nice Ionian columns. There's a guy there that's surrounded by barricades, I don't know why. Well, I do know why actually. They've kind of reset the foundation that the statue was stuck in. So anyway, we're going to go down here. There's lots of really nice cafes here. It's always bustling down here. A bit touristy maybe, but prices are not high actually down here at all. So you can get some quite reasonable food down here. Italo Svevo's really famous book, The Conscience of Zeno, wasn't written until he was almost 60, and then he died due to a car accident not long after. So a little bit of a tragic story here. Imagine if he'd just written that when he was 20. Down here somewhere is a statue of James Joyce, but we're going to have to circumnavigate these roadworks here, which are not usually there. Here we've got a lot of bins. I appreciate that about Trieste, it's pretty easy to throw stuff away. If you've lived in some kind of historic centre kind of place, sometimes it can be really hard to throw stuff away. Honestly, that's really a plus point for a city in my view. Now these restaurants down here I'm not so familiar with. I've probably eaten at most of them at one time or another, but I'm not really keen on loud music, which there is here sometimes. So this guy's asking me if I want to eat something. It's actually been cloudy for the past few days in Trieste, but you can see it's pretty nice and sunny today. It's actually Saturday when I'm recording this, so everyone's out and about, and we're going to see some crowds of tourists here and there. So we're going right by the side of the canal here, and there is the statue of James Joyce, which is often surrounded by people, so it's kind of hard to get a good look at. I'm filming these people by mistake. Okay, so there he is. There's no way that's a full-size statue. That's a really tiny statue. I don't believe James Joyce could have been that small. It must be like 2/3 or something. I mean, if he was that small, I'm sure, like biographies would mention his incredibly small stature. But I think the statue is just small. I wonder, why don't people just make a full-size statue? Maybe that would be a bit too big. It's easier to see if it's small, I suppose. This is a really beautiful canal, I think. Actually, the reason I'm looking in the water is because I was here a year ago, and at the exact same time a year ago, so that was 2023, it's 2024 now, there were huge jellyfish in this canal, and I'm not joking, they were like the size of dustbin lids. I've never seen jellyfish that big in Europe. Actually, I've never been outside Europe, so I don't know what they're like anywhere else. I went once to America, but that's all. So apparently they're called dustbin lid jellyfish as well, and the name really fits them. But this year, I don't see any of them. They're not here at all. I don't know why not. Maybe it's been too cool for them and they're coming later in the year, I'm not sure. So let's just go down here to the sea. And that building you can see kind of at the end there is a ferry terminal, I think. I've only been there to hire cars. There are car hire places carefully tucked away in there. So that, and they're even, one of them's even mismarked on Google Maps. I spent ages looking for it before I finally realised it was in the ferry terminal. So I started reading Ulysses, which is James Joyce's masterpiece. I haven't really got into it yet, I'll be honest. It's not grabbing me yet, but I haven't read very much of it, so I'm just going to have to try to persist with it, and maybe I'll gradually get into it. I'll come back to it at some point. I'm not sure it's the kind of book that I'm really going to enjoy. Apparently it's full of kind of literary allusions and references to different literary things, which is just going to go over my head. I'm from Derbyshire, we're pretty down to earth there generally, and no matter where I go, I carry the Derbyshire with me, I think. Let's walk down here a bit. I'll tell you what, we should go and walk by the sea, because what I want to show you next is the Piazza Unità, the square that's been kind of renamed to represent the unity of Italy. Of course, you only need a square. There's a nice view of the canal there. Look at that. You only need a square representing the unity of a country if there is some question of disunity of the country. And as we'll see, there is a little bit of a question of disunity going on here. So Trieste was part of Italy from the end of the First World War. Before that, it was part of the Habsburg Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, for the most part. A lot of Slovenians here as well. It's had heavy connections with Serbia also. and Croatia. I'm just gonna run across this road here. There was nothing coming. It's totally safe. Don't worry. There we go. There we see the sea. So in that direction, I think, if you went in a straight line, probably get to Venice eventually. The coast actually curves round. So Venice is kind of somewhere roughly over there, I think. If you followed the coast to the right, that should take you to Venice. It would do, but it curves around and there's loads of islands and stuff. So Venice is actually more in that direction. And the next big town on the coast in that direction, you see the hills there, would actually be, well, there's a place called Duino, I think. And then there's Monfalcone, which is reasonably big. If you head down the coast in this direction, on the other hand, you would come really soon to Slovenia. I mean, I could probably almost walk there, but it would take hours, so I'm not going to. You can see there's a pier just here. In the original version of this video, I walked down the pier and tried to feed the seagulls, but they just weren't interested at all. Sometimes of the year, if you throw bread for the seagulls, you'll end up surrounded by a massive screaming mob of seagulls. It's actually a bit unsettling, but at other times, like now, you can throw bread at the seagulls, they don't care at all, not in the least. And actually the sea is full of fish, so that's probably why. Never seen so many fish in my life. I did try to read Finnegan's Wake once, which is completely incomprehensible. I saw a video by Terence McKenna where he was saying that it's kind of like a crossword puzzle with all the different references and allusions and whatnot. But without Terence McKenna to explain the entire book to me, or someone similar, I'm just not going to get it. So I don't think I'm ever going to manage to read that book. So there was a period from 1945, I think, to 1954, when Trieste was not part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire anymore. That had been defeated in the war. And it was also not part of Italy. So for a couple of years, 1945 to 47, it was kind of in limbo. And then it was declared in 47 something like the Free Independent Republic of Trieste or something crazy like that. I know it seems crazy now, but I guess it was totally normal at the time. So from 47 to 54, it was this free independent state, Free State of Trieste. And there are people here who would like it to be free and independent again. I don't know, it's pretty Italian though. If you look at the buildings, they are actually kind of a Germanic style. They're not really typical Italian style. It's more of a Germanic style of architecture, I would say, not knowing that much about architecture. But most of the people here are Italian. So there we go, there's the Grand Square, there's Piazza Unità. At some point it was renamed to Piazza Unità. And it says it claims to be like the biggest square that faces the sea in Europe or something. Probably not the world, but definitely in Italy, I think in Europe. It's pretty big. Again, I'm going to just cross when the traffic stops. In the UK, you basically just run across roads when you think it's safe to do so. But there are some countries where you can really get in trouble for doing that, like the Netherlands. The police got shirty with me for running across a road when I wasn't supposed to. There's no traffic coming, it's just the cross light wasn't green and I wasn't supposed to go across. That's never happened to me in Italy though. I think a lot of Italians do kind of run across the road when it's clear rather than when the light's green. I'm not sure if that's legal or not in Italy. In the UK we don't have this concept of jaywalking. Whether they do in Italy, I'm not actually sure. Anyway, so this is the Grand Square, and on the left here I believe that's the Caffè degli Specchi, Cafe of Mirrors. I don't know why it's called that, but it's pretty famous, mainly because it's on this huge square. So you can sit there and enjoy a really nice view of the square. So the fountain here is apparently the fountain of the 4 continents, representing Asia, America, Africa and Europe. And incredibly, it was built in 1754, which is pretty amazing. It's really old. Absolutely surrounded by people here. A lot of these things, I sort of look at them and I don't really know what they are. And I only really started taking an interest in what everything is, to be honest, because I thought of making some videos about Trieste and maybe other places. So let's leave the square now, because there's something else around here that I want to show you. So bear in mind that this was renamed Unity Square to symbolise the unity of Italy after Trieste became part of Italy. But round the corner is the headquarters of a movement that would like Trieste to be an independent state again, funnily enough. Behind the building at the front there you can see the hills. Actually, they're not exactly hills. Basically you can go uphill about 400 meters or so, and then you reach a plateau, and on top of that plateau is essentially Slovenia. Trieste has this really strange geography. There's this kind of, in this sort of off the end of it's not really a cliff, but a sort of hill that leads down from a plateau. There you find Trieste right by the sea, and because of that it has suffered from extremely high winds. About 100 years ago they planted the side of the hill with trees to reduce the wind, which seems to have worked though. So what I'm looking for here is this headquarters of the people who want to leave Italy for some reason. I don't know why, but I guess they think that would be better somehow. So if we go almost up to this fountain and then turn, there we can see it. USA and UK come back. Free territory of Trieste. I mean, it's actually quite nice to see that. You know, I'm from the UK, and it's always nice to feel welcome. They want us to invade the place again, or I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, anyway, it's better than a smack in the face with a dead fish. You know, it's better than them saying, "Go home, English," which is what I used to see in Scotland when I lived there. So yeah, it's nice to see. I don't understand the politics of it though. Okay, and that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a like if you did. Please give it a like. Consider subscribing, because that's going to encourage me to make more videos. And yeah.